Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Martin, and this is section 10 of the novel 910 by Nora Raleigh Baskin. As usual, we're presented with the setting, and so we are at 3:25 in the afternoon on September 10th in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which means we are right now with the character Will. As you'll recall, last time we read about Will, he and his friends and the girl that he really likes, Claire, are heading out to ride bikes together after school. So let's see how this works out. One by one, without piling on top of one another, Will, Alex, Ben, and Claire skidded to a fast stop, dropped their bikes by the side of Skyline Drive, and headed toward the giant drag lines that had been left behind in the abandoned strip mine. It was still bright out, though the sun had shifted to the other side of the horizon, above the tops of the far line of trees. The light had that tinted orange look that meant fall would be coming soon, and then the darkness of winter. But for now, the summer extended just a little bit longer, and all four of them ran across the open ground until they were out of breath. So let me pause here for a minute and just explain about strip mining. Strip mining is a way to get resources and metals and ores and things that are valuable from the earth. And so what they basically do is they dig very deep into the earth, and then they start peeling back layer by layer by layer of dirt and sifting through it to find the thing that they're mining for. Okay, so it might be iron ore, it might be, different metals, but the bottom line is strip mining is a way of getting material out of the ground. Now, an abandoned strip mine means that whatever was valuable in that location has already been found and there's nothing left. So an abandoned strip mine, I want you to try to imagine some really deep canyons, some very deep cuts in the earth. And this is where these kids have decided to ride their bikes, I'm sure because it's, more interesting than just driving on straight road. Wow, holy crud, they're so freaking big. Alex stood at the top of a small hill of dirt, in the midst of a huge hill of dirt, cleared long ago and now stretching empty, except for the two pieces of mining equipment resting in the distance. They're massive, Ben said. Claire put her hand up to her forehead to shield her eyes from the lowering sun. They look like two knights bowing to each other. So this is a very creative statement. If you think about it, Claire must be somebody with a good imagination. The magical keyword like, she's comparing the machinery to two knights bowing to each other. So this is a simile. They did. The two huge machines faced each other with their tall metal booms stretching out at an angle, like two medieval horsemen with their long swords tipped forward, or sentinels keeping guard, waiting patiently and silently. So the author goes on to explain a little bit more, again comparing the machines to medieval horsemen, and that magical word like means we're still in the middle of a simile. Okay. Sentinels are guards. Okay. So again, comparing, and that's really what this whole paragraph does for us. But only a girl would say something like that. Or Will's dad. When Will and his sisters were little, their dad would lie with them in the grass in their backyard, looking up at the sky, at the low clouds and the way they moved over the tops of the trees. It always looked like the earth was spinning so fast. If you stared at them long enough, you felt dizzy. I'm getting car sick, Will's sister Rooney said one time. And they all laughed. Will's dad would see things in the clouds that no one else ever could. Fantastical things, amazing things, playful things that made the girls laugh, and magical things that made Will want to run inside and write stories about them. Why did he do something so dangerous, so stupid? Didn't he think about us when he got out of his truck? Didn't he think about me? So here we're seeing this internal struggle in Will, right? Here he, is remembering fondly his dad, how his dad had a wonderful imagination and would share that with the kids. And then here, it's almost like the other half of his brain responds with anger and is just so angry at dad that nothing positive, no positive memory can be allowed to live a long, happy life because it has to be stomped out by the anger that he feels. Everyone called his dad a hero, but it didn't make sense. Heroes did heroic things. They saved lives. They pulled people out of burning buildings. They risked their lives to save others, but they didn't die doing nothing. Of course, he knew his father had done a good thing or had tried to do a good thing. But what had come of it? So now this is kind of sad because what he's saying is that heroes risk their lives to save others. Isn't that exactly what Will's dad did? He risked his life to try to help a man who had hit a deer and was sitting in his car disabled in the middle of a highway. So that is risking his safety and his life to help someone else. But Will's not focused on that. He's focused on the outcome. Because the outcome was Will's father died and the man died. So I guess the question is someone only a hero when they survive? And I think we all know the answer to that question is no. Unfortunately, Will hasn't figured it out yet. Let's continue. Hey, remember we used to play WWF in your basement? Will turned to Alex. Yeah, but what made you think of that? Anything to stop thinking about his dad. So Will is desperate to get his dad out of his head. The problem is playing WWF, which is what WWE used to be called, wrestling with your friends. This is probably not the best pastime when you've got the girl that you like hanging out with you. Will took a flying leap from the small hill of earth he was standing on and landed on Alex's back. They both went down onto the loamy soil. It was like old times instantly. Ben spread his feet apart to ground himself, lifted an imaginary microphone to his mouth, and began the color commentary. And in this corner, weighing 295 pounds, from Indian Lake, Pennsylvania, it's the Earthquake, doing his signature move. Oh, no! Alex yelled, laughing, but it was too late. Will bounced from invisible rope to invisible rope as if gaining momentum. He sat right down on Alex's chest and stayed there, ostensibly holding him captive, while Alex flailed his legs and arms around helplessly. Ben slapped the ground, declaring the Earthquake the winner. This is dumb, Claire said. She folded her arms over her chest and watched. It was dumb, but they couldn't stop. Will couldn't stop. It was too much fun. The boys took turns refereeing, winning, losing, being beaten, twisted, and torn from drop kicks, the flying clothesline, and the ever-impressive flapjack spine crusher. He was a kid again, and everything was going to be all right forever. So why does Will take this opportunity to hang out with Claire and throw it away, really? Because he just wants to put himself in a place in his life where his dad wasn't gone and his life wasn't sad or difficult or challenging. And he wants to be a kid again. Because when you're a kid, no matter what goes wrong, you feel like things are going to be all right forever. Because, well, somebody else is going to solve the problem. And unfortunately, in real life, Will knows that the problems don't get solved by someone else. And unfortunately for him, he's had to become more of a problem solver than most 14-year-olds have to. Hey, let's do something else, Claire called out. Someone's going to get hurt. It wasn't like she was wrong about that. Back in the day, down in Alex's basement, Ben had once cut his head on the metal heating vent. Alex had gotten a rug burn so serious his mom had to take him to the doctor the next day. Will himself had gone home from their wrestling sessions aching and wondering if he hadn't cracked a rib or two. But it felt good to fight again, to fight back, to play hard and mean it, and not break. "Hey, I'm serious," Claire yelled. "Stop." Somehow her complaints just egged the boys on. What was a good fight without an audience? The more upset Claire got, the more fun it all seemed, the harder they fought. Will looked up from his faceplant. He could see that Claire was really getting annoyed. After all, he was the one who had asked her to come. And then Will remembered how many times he had thought about spending time with her. But not like this. It felt strange, like there were two halves to his body. One wanted to get up and hold Claire's hand and just sit and look at the clouds in the sky and even talk and who knows. And the other half wanted to struggle and roll and sweat and twist this person's arm behind his back and not be worried about anything at all. So this is kind of an interesting idea. The idea that sometimes we get stuck between two very different worlds, especially when we're teenagers. So Will wants to grow up. At least half of him does. But he also wants to stay a kid. Because being a kid is easier, isn't it? Don't you think that when your problems could be solved by mom or dad or whoever's at home taking care of you, that, whenever things got difficult, an adult could step in and make it better? It seems a lot easier than having to work things through for yourself, doesn't it? So this shows us that Will's torn between two very real places. He's torn between the safety and security of childhood and stuff that he's known and been familiar and comfortable with. And he's torn between the possibilities and hopefulness of a future where maybe as a more grown-up version of himself, he has adventure and excitement and romance with somebody that he really likes. So this is kind of sad because Will can't really pull it together in this moment. "I've had it," Claire said finally. Will could see her getting up and walking away. In another second, she'd be on her bike and heading back to her house. In one more second, she'd probably never want to talk to him again. They always had needed someone to tell them when enough was enough. Usually when someone got a little hurt, and Alex's mom came running down the basement stairs, telling everyone it was time to go home before someone got really hurt. Or when Alex's little brother looked as if he might have gotten knocked unconscious for real, and it was time to bribe him to keep his mouth shut. Or when Claire was walking away, lifting her bike off its side, swinging her leg over, and leaving. And she was gone. So what's kind of interesting about this is Will is showing us that sometimes we have multiple parts to our personality. And everybody does. I think that's fair to say. If you haven't realized this, it's absolutely the truth. We have a school version of ourselves, the one that sits in the classroom and speaks classroom English. We have the version of ourselves who we are with our friends, right? So that's probably a more casual, relaxed version of ourselves. We have who we are with our family. And sometimes that version of ourselves behaves differently depending on the family members that we're around, okay? There might be a part of yourself that you are when you're doing a sport with a team or you're doing some kind of extracurricular activity, right? So we all have different parts or facets to our personalities. And sometimes it's really just difficult to get all of those versions of ourselves to cooperate in the same moment, especially when you have different people surrounding you. And so ultimately, Will fails at trying to be multiple versions of himself in one moment because it's hard to do. And he really can't decide, does he want to be that kid who lives forever in that secure place where adults run the show? Or does he want to be the more grown-up version of himself and find a new future beyond the pain and tragedy that his family faced? So, at this point, you now have a lot of information to add to your character chart for Will. Please make sure that you do this because we don't want to move too far into the book without these details being in the chart. So make sure you've written it down, include your page numbers, and of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll see you back here for section 11. Have a good one.